with me, and you'll see that I live in a world that don't give a fuck, bitch.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your man, Fat Man Buddha, and today we are going to be going further into the Masonic usurpers of our nation, because it is important that we talk about these type of things when we are discussing reparations and segregation, and why we need this as a people and as a nation. The last video we had the great metaphysicist Phil Valentine, who is very, very well knowledgeable about these certain things. We're going to be discussing him in our next video. Today, we have the one and only Steve Kukley, and he is someone I think that everybody is going to grow to love, because he talks like we do when we're at the barbecue. You know, he's not trying to go with all these big words and all these fancy metaphors. He's just giving it to you exactly how you need to hear it. Now, if you don't hear it this way, then I don't know what to tell you. I truly do not know what to tell you, because at that point, you're just putting your head in the ground and covering your head with dirt. You know, the most important thing that you have to understand is that it is the Freemasons versus the Freemasons. You know, if you are a bloodline descendant here in the land of Turtle Island, you have to understand that you are a natural born Freemason. All of our women are natural born Eastern Stars. We don't have to go through any secret organization ritual, because we went through a spirit ritual before we got here. And I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, especially those who tend to stay away from all the talks about the occult and witchcraft and voodoo and all the esoteric speakings. We will be bringing up Bobby Hemmett sooner or later, but right now I want to deal with a more physical presence before we start dealing with a spiritual presence. And the reason why I want to deal with a more physical presence is because I feel as though we can all agree upon a physical presence, rather than everyone sitting here and arguing amongst themselves about a spiritual presence. In the words of Malcolm X, if your religion has not done anything for you other than help you turn the other cheek when your enemy has attacked you, then you should put your religion in the closet. They don't hang you because you're a Muslim. They don't hang you because you're Christian. They don't hang you because you're Hebrew or Jewish. They hang you because you're black. And if you cannot come to this table and understand that we have a common enemy on the basis of us being the same physically, then we have no use for you. I don't care whether you are a Muslim or a Christian or you're a Hebrew. It does not matter to me. If you look like me, then we are in the same fight together, because they're not trying to kill us for any other reason than who we are. Not what we are, who we are. So that intro took a lot longer, so I'm going to edit it. And without further ado, let's get to the great Steve Kukley.
many times when people say that there's no conspiracy to run the country, all you got to do is pick up your dollar bill. Say, well, hold it, let's go through this a minute. Here is a pyramid with an all-seeing eye that underneath it says Novus Ordo Seclorum. Now, everybody say Bush got a new program called New World Order. But how could George Bush in 1990 come up with a new program that George Washington put on the dollar bill in 1776? In fact, that Roman numeral up under there is 1776. In fact, that pyramid and the all-seeing eye probably was never even seen visually by George Washington in his whole fucking life. But what do that mean? Why would a bunch of white boys, Masons, put a symbol of what they call the great architect on their most commonly used currency, but then go out and call the remnants of that 3/5 of a man? But then they were what they call Freemasons, so if you was only 3/5 of a guy, you couldn't get in it, even though it was yours to begin with. That's a whole nother story. Now, of course, Tony Browder, in the Browder file, everybody should have a Browder file. In the Browder file, he'll go through all of the things relevant to what's on the eagle and on the other side, the phoenix. Of course, it was drawn as a phoenix. Now, a guy named Manly Palmer Hall, who is an expert, an old white dusty guy who died recently, is an expert in Masonic writings, once wrote a book called The Secret Destiny of America. And in that book, and he's known for writing over 2,000 different Masonic books, in that book, he talks about the pyramid and the all-seeing eye, but most importantly, he shows that that phoenix is in fact a phoenix and not an eagle. That's important because the phoenix is a bird that has a 500-year relationship. Mythical African. 500 years seems to coincide from 1492 to 1992. The dumbest people on the planet in 1492 thought the world was square. They were so dumb. But by 1992, the dumbest beasts, cave dwellingest, evil, contempt for God, contempt for nature, hate for the direct descendants of God Almighty has risen up and conquered the planet in 499 years, and he's about to sit in his chair 1992. That's important because where they are is as important as where we are. And of course he does the symbolism of the phoenix, knowing the bird up versus the eagle, the head down. If you're in Washington, D.C., go to Freedom Plaza on 1400 Pennsylvania Avenue and look into the ground of Freedom Plaza are big seals. And you will see the original seal from the 1700s and the reconstructed seal in the 1800s that made that a bald eagle and not a phoenix. And you will then see the coding of the 13s and the 13 mentioned 13 times. Okay? But this is evidence of a secret society. These Masons had broke away from the British on the cover, but were secretly linked to the British through secret Masonic lodges who were chartered by the British. That's why when you talk about Skull and Bones, remember it is chartered by some Germans. So when the question comes up, where did the Illuminati go in 1782 when it got crushed? It went up into the University of Ingolstadt and submerged itself in other secret societies until it re-emerged again as a part of Skull and Bones in 1832. Now, Alfonso Taft is a part of the Taft family that has run Ohio still to this day. Anybody here from Ohio? Anybody here from Ohio will tell you that the Taft's been running it since it was a state. Senators, congressmen, a Taft now just become Secretary of State. Another Taft is head of NATO. Another Taft just died. But the son of Alfonso Taft, the co-founder of Skull and Bones, his son is named William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft is the only man in the history of America to become Chief Justice and President. That's important. Now, Skull and Bones at Yale University is a postgraduate secret society. What's important about that? Which means that you go through your initiation in your senior year, but the real activity with the organization is after graduation. Now, when you go through the initiation rites, they give you $15,000 cash. and a promise of lifetime success if you obey the laws of the Skull and Bones. Interestingly enough, in the story they did on Channel 9 in Washington, D.C. on Skull and Bones recently, last week, they mentioned that when Skull and Bones is mentioned, you have to walk out of the room. So they showed Senator Bob Curry being asked about Skull and Bones, and he says, now, Senator, I hear when they mention Skull and Bones, you got to leave. He says, bye. Then they showed another time when a brother asked Bush, when he was sitting with a foreign dignitary, said, Mr. Bush, are you in Skull and Bones? And Bush looked right at him and he says, I'm not leaving the room. That's code talk. Now, sources on Skull and Bones. Best source, several. One book called America's Secret Establishment by a professor from University of California named Anthony Sutton. I got a copy of the book up here somewhere. I want to show you the cover. America's Secret Establishment. Got a whole breakdown of the Brundys, the Harrimans, the Lords, the Pillsburys, the Tafts, and all the major families that were involved in the book, but exhibit number whatever. An introduction into the order of Skull and Bones. Now, what this book does is show you, in fact, there's small versions of this because he put them out in booklet form like this before he put it in a big book like this. There are 4 booklets that go into this book. But if you get any of them, do y'all sell books here? Well, I need to show you some places to order, because when they hear the tapes, but you sell hundreds of these. All right. Okay, so we need to get them. Now, another source is Esquire magazine, September 1977. Article by a guy named Rosenblum. Of course, he's Jewish. He wrote an article called The Last Rites of Skull and Bones, something like that. And it appeared in Esquire magazine, September 1977. It's a good article because it has some interesting things in it. It mentions that also, besides laying in a coffin to do your initiation, after you lay in the coffin butt naked, you got to get out and jump in a pile of mud and wrestle with your fellow initiates, again, butt naked. We ought to ask Bush why he was sliding all around his brother, man. Did he slip up and catch one of them? We need to check that out. Now, one of the things they do in Skull and Bones is they have a little ritual. They take the initiate and they set him at a table. They put 2 skulls on the table, skeleton heads. They tell the initiate, I want you to look at these 2 skulls, and I want you to tell me which one is the fool and which one is the wise man. He said, after that, I want you to tell me which one is the rich man and which one is the beggar. Now the initiate, he looking all over the skulls, he looking, shit time passing. They stand there just looking at him, right? Wondering when he gonna figure it out that he can't tell the difference. Right? Because the lesson they're teaching the initiate, their language is, when you're dead, you're dead. Meaning you can't tell when you're dead whether you was a rich man or a beggar, a fool or a wise man. So kick that ass while you live in fuck heaven. White people are linear. Oh, now, watch them now. White people are linear. They just do shit. Right? Straight. They don't stand and account for nothing. Right? Of course, we're African people. We're circular. You reap what you sow. Cause and effect. What go around, come around. Eye for an eye. Those are the laws that are known in the African tradition. We sit in circles. But the white man, he linear. Right? Hey, but check out what they do. Up in the ritual, in the Masonic and in the Skull and Bones, they say, look, trust no one who believes in heaven, for they'll suffer hell while they're on earth. Now, don't that sound like us? Don't that sound? To teach a person in a secret society, trust no one who believes in heaven, means that the believers in heaven are vulnerable to pain while on earth. Now, it's all right of believing in heaven, but fuck retribution. We can deliver it while we're here. God would have wanted it that way. Okay, we did that one. Okay, 15 members in their junior year. When you're in your senior year, if you're picked as a junior, when you're in senior year, you become known as a knight. When you graduate, you're known as a patriarch. Now, a knight draws similar connections to something called the Knights of Templar. Now, we got to get into the Knights of Templar. They use the cross and they use the king's crown for symbols. Now, this is important because that'll lead you to a guy named Jacques de Molay. Now, let's get with it. Now, you got to do this. Jacques de Molay is the last known publicly Knights of Templar who was burned at the stake in 1314 by two people. The king, King Philip somebody, and the Pope, Pope Clement. Now, this is heavy because in the ritual of the 29th and 30th degree of the Scottish Rite Masons, they use the same skulls in the ceremony like they do in Skull and Bones. But in this one, they put 3 skulls on the table. They put 2 skulls next to the skull in the middle. They tell the initiate that the skull in the middle is de Molay, and that de Molay is surrounded by the church and the state, the Pope and the king. And that for de Molay's linear to succeed, you have to neutralize them both, the church and the state. That's heavy. That's heavy because when you go to the so-called taking of this country, it was a Masonic takeover, nothing less. There was no loose ends on the takeover of America. It was a Masonic activity. Now, that's why their symbols are on the dollar bill. Oh, interestingly enough, when they have their meetings in Skull and Bones, they meet at 8 o'clock. I noticed one interesting thing that Malcolm mentioned in autobiography is that when they kept threatening to kill him, they kept calling him at 8 o'clock. See, and I take things as cold. Nothing happens happenstantially. So he keeps getting these calls at 8 o'clock, and every time the bondsmen pose for pictures, they put a grandfather clock behind them, and it's at 8 o'clock. In fact, when you go over, beside getting 15,000, you get a grandfather clock. Now, we did that one. Let's go back to de Molay. Now, in Washington, D.C., there's a Masonic temple called the George Washington Masonic Memorial. It's in Virginia, Arlington, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. I got a picture of it right here. It's open to the public. When you're in Washington, D.C., you should go there. Here's a copy of the people who are working. Here's a copy of it here. You can take the metro there. You can go on tours of it. It's the George Washington Memorial Masonic Temple. What's so important about it is that in the basement is a little video play of the Order of de Molay. You see, when you're a Mason, the Masonic youth organization is called the Order of the de Molay. Now check this out, this is deep. George Bush was sworn in with the Bible that George Washington was sworn in with. That Bible had never moved from the time George Washington used it. But the Bible come from the Masonic Lodge in New York, St. John's Masonic Lodge. And it was taken by a guy named Robert Livingston, who was head of the Masons in New York at that time. You got Livingston Street running right down the street that we drove down to get up in here before we come across the Brooklyn Bridge to go there. We come past Livingston Street, a diagonal street. Right? These things are not arbitrarily named either. And Livingston was the guy who ran the Masons, and the Bible that he used for George Washington was never used till George Bush used it, and he was sworn in by Potter Stewart, Skull and Bones man, who was on the Supreme Court at that time. Now, the interesting thing is that Masonic Bible is now at the Virginia Masonic Temple, and it's opened up to a certain page in a case. The Songs of Solomon. Right? Now check this out. The Masonics prided themselves in controlling the law. Counsel, tell me if this is so, that you just went to jury duty? When you go to court, you raise your right hand and you say what? I do solemnly swear. Now, you ain't arbitrarily swearing on Solomon. It is for your understanding. that all oaths are sworn on Solomon, and the songs of Solomon say, I am black, I'm black, black. Now let's pick it up. Some coded shit in here somewhere. Now I don't know everything. Let me just say, I don't know everything. I'm a humble child standing before you, thrusting before you the little things that I do know, so that they can fit the things that you know, so that together we can make a better picture. That's the best I can do. That's the best I can do. There may be people who know this better than me. Many times when we talk like this, it sets the climate so that we can carry the discussion further, because many times people that know feel that the other people don't care, so they never say. Okay? So sometimes somebody throws the stick down and lays the tin over, and Copley comes under it, and it stops some of the rain, and others come in too. And we get to add clarity to things that we need to know. Now, I'm down in the Masonic temple. And I'm looking at this display they got on the Order of the Demolay, which is the Masonic youth organization from 13 to 21. See, you can't be no Mason until you're over 21, I think. So, but you got to be in the Order of the Demolay. Now, the Order of the Demolay has a picture of the youth that goes through the ceremony, and it says for their oath, I do so promise. But you look there, there's a blank where Solomon could go in it. See what it says, I do so, and then it's blank, and then it goes to the next line. See, since you just a shorty, you do so swear. When you become a longie, you do solemnly swear. And there's the picture of the Masonic youth in his little garb, saying before the table with the 3 books with the string around it, over a Bible, where they do their ritual. But isn't it strange that the Masons have a training ground for their youth, preparing to replace what they call themselves as the successors to the ancient Egyptians? See, somebody say, why you fuck with the Masons? Because when you read the white Mason stuff, they say they're the successors to the ancient Egyptians, but I don't know. I know it says the beginning and the end. I don't know about what they're talking about. I don't know nothing about that. In fact, Napoleon was a Mason. What did he do when he got to the Sphinx?
Shut the nose off.
But now that he's a Mason, it would make sense, since he wants to claim that was his thing when he knew it was your thing. 21 gun salute. Right on the nose. Michael did it at his own expense. Anyway, that's nothing. Anyway. Now what was interesting was that while I was there, and I looked at the little brochure of the Demolay, it says Demolay was started more than 70 years ago in Kansas City, Missouri. I said, oh, that's great. But just so happened my next speaking engagement was Kansas City, Missouri. I said, great. So I called my friend and said, hey, when I get there, we got to go on a mission. Now, anybody know, and I haven't done it here, I need help. I need to go around and put on videotape many of the symbols that are here in New York. Your city is Masonically coded, just like Washington, D.C., Chicago, L.A., Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. They all, Indianapolis, Lafayette, Indiana, they all Masonically connected by their street names, their meridians, their drives, where their Scottish Rite Temple is located. It just has to be decodified. I need to go to these spots to put these things on film and to look at them carefully. Philadelphia is heavily loaded with it, Washington, D.C., just all over the place, and we need to decodify it. I have, and I'm about to release soon, a videotape. When I get back to Chicago, I'm going to edit it. For example, I went to L.A. In L.A., the Scottish Rite Temple is at Wilshire and Crenshaw. What's important about that is Crenshaw is the black street, Wilshire is the white street, and it comes to a point. And then they got 33 statues, and it starts off with an African Imhotep and ends with George Washington. Now that's something going on there. When you go to Kansas City, Missouri, the Scottish Rite Temple is up on Linwood Boulevard at what's known as the highest point of Kansas City. Kansas City, Missouri, which across the bridge is Kansas City, Kansas, where all of the Masonic temples, the police association and everything is on 7th Street. Right when you're in Kansas City, Missouri, look at the war memorial set up in 1918 to honor the end of World War I and the spirit of the League of Nations, which accomplished what couldn't be done until later through the United Nations. Land donated by Rockefeller, so on and so forth. But go check that in Kansas City, Missouri. You see a big oblique. You see sphinxes with shrouds over them. All these things you need to check. I'll just tell you them in the record. When you go to these cities, you can check for yourselves. When you're in Cincinnati, go to Eden Park. In Eden Park, at the top of Eden Park, Cincinnati is laid off like Rome. They got 7 hills there. Eden Park has got a statue in it, donated from the mayor of Rome, called Romulus and Remus, which is the little white babies sucking the bowels of the wolf for nourishment. And we know that the reason that milk don't go in our stomach is because we ain't no damn beasts. And because we ain't a beast, now I see they got some stuff called lactose calmer or something. You can eat this little pill and it'll help you digest beast milk. That's a whole nother dialogue. We gotta get into that. But anyway, Kansas City, you will see out near the airport. I told everybody, I asked Kansas City packed house, tell me what the demole is. Not one single black person in Kansas City knew what the demole was. But it's the training ground for the Masonic youths, and the black people in Kansas City didn't even know there was such a thing. So we go to the demole headquarters, and there it is, laying there looking like a triangle with 3-step pyramid. We all in the windows, beating on the doors. Let us in there. We wanted all around it was all kind of Masonic stuff. But the people there were excited to start to get a handle on the decodification of the things that are right in their face, but without knowing the code, it's of no use to them. Now, this Masonic thing is interesting because in Washington, D.C., they have what's called the House of the Mother Supreme. The House of the Mother Supreme is the headquarters of 33 states. The Masonic Scottish Rite is drawn up into 33 states for the South and 17 states for the North. Now, why is that? I don't know. The 33 states in the South headquarters is right there at 16th Street in Washington, D.C. Of course, everything there is coded. The steps go 3579, their phone number 3579. When you walk in, you look right on the lights. Every light got a picture of Hermes on it. You say, who that? They say, oh, that's Hermes. They say, in fact, we got a room downstairs where the documents are hermetically sealed. Now, Hermes is stealing some African stuff. But they, of course, manipulate these things. In fact, they had one room down there, interestingly enough, had a gate on it. They wouldn't let us in it. And I'll show you right in the book, the room has a gate on it. They won't let the public in it. And if you look at the room, you can see it's got bars around it. It says, let no one ignorant of geometry enter my doors. Of course, geometry and Pythagoras and the theorem and all of that has something to do about the things they be doing. That's what it says around there, let no one ignorant of geometry enter my doors. I said, what's in there? He said, all our hermetically sealed records. Of course, they call Hermes the bearer of light. And that goes to a whole nother thing. Interestingly enough, here's the front of the temple. The temple is built upon the symbolism of the Temple of Solomon. In fact, many of the Masonic temples, and they got 33 columns going around the building, each column is 33 feet high. They got 2 shrouds, two major sphinxes in the front, and they mention that the 2 monumental sphinx placed at the left and right of the uppermost flight of stairs guard the temple's door. Symbolizing wisdom, the one on the right has half-closed eyes and serene features. Symbolizing power, its mate to the left has a wide open eye and an alert, determined aspect. The rising above the sphinxes are 33 columns, each 33 feet tall. And there are pictures of the 2 sphinxes. You see they got onyxes all in the front of them. And behind them is, of course, the lotus flower that doesn't even count for their being made. In fact, I tell you, I don't know where the white people come from. I used to think they evolved from us. But I ain't never seen no gorilla live in no cave. I ain't never seen that. Gorilla still don't eat meat. He ate dog, cat, rat, wife, child, anything he can get his paws on. Now, Here they got a great stairway. They call it the Great Staircase. Each of the stairs are numbered, leading up to a bust of Albert Pike. The Scottish Rite thing is based upon the reformist attitudes of Albert Pike, who is known as who wrote their Bible called Morals and Dogma. That's the Masonic Bible. I think I may got a copy over here. No, I must have left it. The Morals and Dogma, that's the Bible. And when you read their book, here's a book of theirs called A Bridge to Light. This is a book going through all the ceremonies of the Scottish Rite with all of the symbolism. I hope you can get some of this on the camera. Come on, camera, y'all got to work. And here, for every one of their rituals, is all of the symbolism with all of the breakdown from the Morals and Dogma and all the things that have to be used. Interestingly enough, I took this book to Kansas City to show you the different symbols for every one of their degrees. They show all of the rituals, the aprons. You can see there's an apron with a head and the swords crossed, and all of the things they have to use as part of each step from 4 to 32. Now, of course, this Scottish Rite thing, this book here is very heavy. If you feel it, it's very heavy. When you look at it, it's 340 pages. I took it to a printer. He said, Steve, this cover is 10 pages meshed together. This back cover is 10 pages meshed together. And 340 plus 20 is 360. And the book weighs a certain thing, and the weight of the book is Masonically coded as well. These numbers are no arbitrary things because the Masons are into numerology. Of course, those are all things that you taught them. Now, when you go to these tours, you can tour this House of the Mother Supreme. You play with the little tour guide, right? He checks you out to see if you know anything, you know. He says, well, this is actually, that Hebrew there is actually what Solomon and them was talking about. Oh, no, man, Solomon didn't use Hebrew. Oh, well, maybe that's something else. See, he tells you one thing and lie to you, and only if you know the truth can you challenge him and force him up to give better clarity. So you go in there, you say, he says, now this is my favorite book. I look down at it and it's in a foreign language. I said, well, what do it say? He said, I don't know, I can't read it. I said, well, how's it your favorite book? He said, I don't know. He's just checking you out. But you go on the tour, and interestingly enough, we start messing with it, right? We say, well, let's see here. Since you all, see, the white boy Masons got a thing saying that the Prince Hall ain't the real Masons because they can't find their charter. But in the Prince Hall thing, they'll tell you the story about the Boston Tea Party wasn't about taxation without representation. It was about 12 Masons dressed up as Indians going on the boat, overthrowing the crates, trying to find the charter that was sent from the British Lodge to Prince Hall. But you will have to sit with your Prince Hall Mason so that they can clarify those stories for you. So they try to say that Prince Hall ain't legit because he ain't got no charter. So we say, well, hold it, white boy, how far you done trace your charter back? See, then he get you challenge him. He said, well, actually, we're all the way back at 735 with St. Augustana going backwards. I said, well, when you finish, we'll see you when you get there. You see, when they go back, they're just going back to you. They're trying to trace how far they can trace back to you. Of course, in Stolen Legacy, he clearly identifies that all of the white masonry stuff is just stuff taken from the ancient mystery schools, taught to all men who are part of an African society. But the danger again that they present is that within their dialogue, they say, we ain't shit, and that they are the successors to all that we were. So the problem is that they see us as something to be conquered. I will suggest to you that the reason the pyramid and the all-seeing eye is on the dollar bill because they will know when they have won when they take the pyramids. And don't say they won't take them. They got a 400,000 strong military sitting just across the river. Don't they? And they got them there under the guise of the Persian Gulf War. Now, interestingly enough, when you go to that 29th and 30th rite of the Scottish Rite, you get into the order of de Molay and the things that they say about the ritual process between de Molay, the Prince, and the Knights of Templar. This is all very important. This book is called A Bridge to Light. And the Masons say that this rainbow is an important symbol of Masonic activity. I said, boy, I can't wait to ask Jesse about why he picked the Rainbow Coalition when the rainbow means something especially Masonic. And they even put it right on their book, A Bridge to Light, which is a $8 book you can get when you go to the temple. Now, when we went to the temple, we were asking for all kind of books that they didn't want to sell us. See, when you come in, they say, are you a Mason? We said, oh, no, we're not. In fact, we say very clearly, we're of a higher order. See, I use on my logo something that looks like an eye in the keyhole. So when they get to talking stuff one way, we just show out and say, oh no, we from a higher order. They get to, well, what's that eye? When they into these eyes, they be watching you when you start doing things beyond what they understand. So you just flash it and pull it back. Right? And out in the back, you will see my button, Steve Copley naming names. You'll see that eye faded in the background. Now I have a black eye that I don't have many more of. I think that are all gone, but when we start giving away that free food from them greenhouses that are just about to become in harvest, that anybody with that black eye gonna get some free food before we then start to use the food in other ways. But we'll talk about the greenhouse system too, because for the cost of a used car, you could feed a neighborhood, right? And we don't feed each other. In Africa, starving, but for the cost of $12,000, we could build a solar power system that could use raw, the hottest damn thing burning all in Africa all day long, and put up so much electricity in the middle of the desert that we could export the electricity in a power cell. But that's a whole nother subject, because you say, you ain't got no fucking solution. When you lay this shit right out there and tell them how easy it is, they say, well, why ain't nobody done it? Because ain't nobody trying to win the damn thing. See, we all struggling, but we ain't trying to win. This is based upon trying to find the moment when we can get the beast, which by itself is very strong, well planted. We know well strong, well planted with the tanks and the cruise missiles and the what's that thing, self-bomber and all of that. We know well planted, he's difficult to beat. But we also know that we can so instigate him that we can get him all wild and woolly and up on his legs and hinds and all wild, so that it would just take something simple just to push him over once we've sucked him up off of his legs. See, every time you start going at him, he gets all wild and woolly. He's so mad at this brother, he suspend him like he suspended no one ever. Because he's all like this, he can't take it. He's mad because when he told you to be quiet and shut up, you kept going. See, he said, well, maybe he ain't of our order. You see, the reality is that everybody ain't of the nature of the beast, so he don't have control over everything. See, when they got to Milli Vanilli and said, well, why was you mouthing a song you didn't sing? They said, we made a deal with the devil. All right, that's clear to me. And everybody will tell you about the day that they had to cut a deal to stay in the game. You see, it's really the virgins versus the whores. You take 100 virgins who might not know everything, might not be on all of the things. You have more moral and spiritual power there than 1,000 whores. So always when you're with the young, pledge and support their keeping their values and their principles and their virginity, because the confidence to fight comes out of the cleanliness of your activity. Now, in the house of the Mother Supreme is a room for the astronauts. They got an astronaut room there. And they got replicas of the flag that the dude took and put on the moon. The flag of the house of the Mother Supreme, he put it on the moon when he went up there. Remember when they did that one small step for mankind shit? He put the Masonic flag on the moon. And they got a copy of it in that house of the Mother Supreme. But they also got a J. Edgar Hoover room there. Now that's very important, that in the Masonic temple, house of the Mother Supreme, is a J. Edgar Hoover room, because Hoover was a 33rd degree Mason. But we also remember Hoover for running the COINTELPRO program that had him monitoring the rise of a... Because as a Mason, he know it ain't a white one. Okay? Now, All the entry-level Masonic books all carry blue covers. Because the lower lodges of Masonry, 1, 2, and 3, are called the blue lodges. But we know that the Masons pride themselves in control of the law, so they also infiltrated heavily law enforcement. All of the police units are called blue lights. All over the country, they changed all the lights to blue lights. Correct? Well, you don't know that. Yes, correct. Now, all police organizations are called what? Fraternal orders of police. Come on, Africans. They're fraternal. That's all the police organizations are fraternal orders, or the benevolent something or another. Am I right or wrong? Now, do you think that while you up in the criminal court building, they all standing on the square and doing all kind of shit, and you suffering, that they don't know something that we don't? So what I'm telling to you is that the Masonic activity infiltrated the implementation of the law. And they all work under the blue-coded system. The lower lodges, 1, 2, and 3 are blue lodges. It isn't until you get to the 4th degree that you can then get off into the Masonic Scottish Rite thing. And the Albert Pike say that in the first 3 lodges, they only think they know the truth. It isn't until the 4th that we start to teach them, but what you learn in the first 3 is the crest of the law enforcement system, which is what? The code of silence. That's what you pick up in 1, 2, and 3, to shut the fuck up. And that is the crest of police work.
So their system is not stopping. And then finally, I want to say that we need one idea. And we're not thinking about a solution to the problem. We're dealing with all these other things, but these are diversions from the solution to the problem. And we have to start to think about a solution to the problem so that these young brothers and sisters who are here now, who are 15, 16, and 17, are not here 25 years later talking about these same problems. Now, how do I know that the white people know that we are going to come up with a solution to the problem? I know it because they have retina scans, they have what they call racial profiling, DNA banks, and they're monitoring our people to try to prevent the one person from coming up with the one idea. And the one idea is how we are going to exterminate white people, because that, in my estimation, is the only conclusion I have come to. We have to exterminate white people off of the face of the planet to solve this problem. Now, I don't care whether you clap or not, but I'm saying to you that we need to solve this problem because they are going to kill us. And I will leave on that. So we have to just set up our own system and stop playing and get very serious and not be diverted.
So not only do you have to free the land and help to liberate the rest of the planet Earth for political power again, you'll have to do it so that all humanity can once again get back on its proper course. And we can live life as it's supposed to be lived. Become more godlike. The object of this knowledge is to be a reflection of yourself in the mirror of history. And when you look in that mirror, you will see God, because each one of us are in the image of the Creator, the Ancient of Days, with the lamb woolly hair and the color of amber. And as Jeremiah said, he looked like the pitch of oven. Each one of us are a reflection. So when we look in the mirror, we see God. God shining forth from us. And if you truly believe in the Creator, then you know that you cannot accept a life other than the highest and the best that you can get out of it.